I'm so happy to meet our guest today. He's a widely celebrated actor. He's a comedian. He's a podcaster par excellence. He's known for his work alongside his old friend Joe Cornish, and he's now sharing his musings on anything from DIY to television to rock stars to kids to mums in his new memoir. It's called I Love You, Byeee. It's called I Love You, Byeee, I think.
Byeee.
That's it.
3 E's. It's what I say at the end of my podcast.
Yes.
When I'm signing off. And it has occurred to me a few times that it might be appropriate for me because I'm in the process of beginning to lose my hair.
Yes.
So it's sort of, whenever I think of the title, I think of it as me saying, I love you, bye, to the rest of my hair. But before it all goes, it's good for a title for my second
Your
memoir.
second. We're gone beyond the ramble.
Holy
and
Moses.
into this point of your life.
Yeah.
You're wearing a hat that's not dissimilar to The Edge from U2. We're into that zone. I don't know if he wears it for follicle reasons or otherwise, but
I would say, no disrespect to The Edge.
How are you feeling about things like losing your hair? I mean, you've done well to keep it so far, haven't you?
I'm not doing too bad. I've got a couple of years. I actually had a hair consultation with a transplant guy.
What age were you when you did that? Oh, just recently?
Yeah, just recently.
Okay.
When I was sort of considering my options, and the vanity was biting one day when I looked in the mirror and I thought, oh, you cowardly hair, where are you going? And then a couple of friends of mine have had hair transplants, very good ones.
Yeah. Where? In the UK or in Turkey?
In Ireland.
Oh, in Ireland.
Yeah.
I think I know the guy who did it. Yeah.
Sure. I think Ireland is the capital of the amazing next level hair transplant.
Dr. Collins, I was in school with his son. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And across the world, everyone is copying the technique that this guy perfected in Ireland. That's what I heard, yeah. Anyway, so I had him recommended to me and I had a consultation and he looked at the progress of my hair. I took a lot of photos from various different angles and he was very nice, but he confidently predicted, I won't do the accent, you're going to be bald in 2 years.
Despite everything.
Yeah. He was like, yeah, I can see. And having looked at photographs of members of your family, male members of your family, and the progress that their hair took, I would say that you won't have any hair on the top of your head in a couple of years. I was like, a couple of years? I thought it was just going to carry on getting thinner. Anyway, so...
You've abandoned that option.
I mean, I've put it on hold.
Okay.
If I suddenly turn up and I've got a luxuriant head of hair...
We'll have an idea.
Sometime in the next couple of years, you'll know what happened.
I've known a few fellas that did go for it. I think James Nesbitt has regularly, whenever I speak to him when I used to speak to him on the chat show in Ireland, he used to always refer to this guy.
Yes, he's a big advocate for it. The thing is that in my mind, and this is my personal prejudice, is that he's an actor. His whole thing is about what he looks like. Okay. He needs to look a certain way. I'm not really like that. I feel like I can't quite justify it to myself on those grounds. You know what I mean? Yeah. Plus, I'm married. These are all my personal prejudices. I'm not impugning the right of any man to look the way he wishes at any point if he can afford to do so, because it's not given away.
Does Sarah have anything to say about this? Does she have strong thoughts?
She's very liberal and open-minded. She's like, do what you want. I think you're fine. You look fine to me. Also, she's, I hope she won't mind me saying, quite grey herself and semi-paranoid. I don't think she's that paranoid. And I'm like, I like you, Grey. You look great. You're my favourite Gandalf-type wife. And I find
you've lost her now. You lost her on Gandalf. I mean, saying Grey is great is one thing, but calling her Gandalf is quite another. Said the man with the beard.
Yeah, that's right. I know. Anyway, I think we're both gradually in the process currently of weighing up the options and trying to make peace with the possibility that this might just be the way our bodies go.
I can fast forward 6 months. You with luxuriant hair and Sarah with this dark brunette. Could be two very different. Adam, your book. Do you want to give us a little elevator pitch? Just for people who don't know what this is.
Oh no, elevator pitches.
It's impossible.
This is my worst nightmare. No, I suppose the deal is that my first book, Ramble Book, was kind of an account of my adolescence, and it very forensically went through all my cultural influences in the 80s when I was an adolescent. And I also talked about caring for my dad in the last years of his life and talking about our relationship overall, the fact that he was a part of the TV show we made, me and Joe, the Adam and Joe show, and he was our kind of pop cultural correspondent as a grumpy man in his 70s. This book is kind of the sequel in that it deals much more with me and Joe Cornish being on TV in the 90s, the run up to actually making that show, how we got to make it, this weird do-it-yourself show. So when you say I talk about DIY, I mean I talk about DIY TV rather than putting up shelves. We genuinely made this show ourselves. It was like YouTube before YouTube, you know. And somehow we were able to make 4 series of this thing on Channel 4 right up between 96 and 2001. So I talk about that. And I also talk about my mum. I suppose that's more the emotional heart of it.
Yes.
Is that my mum died in 2020, just before my first book came out. Yeah. And so I write about that and how it took me totally by surprise and how the process of her dying kind of sent me on this mission to excavate my past. She left behind so much stuff, all these photos. So looking through the photos and then looking through the stuff I did with Joe and in excavating the past in that way is kind of what runs through this book.
It's a very beautiful book for different reasons, because there is the pop culture, to use your expression, nostalgia. Of course there is, but it's a lot of it's through the prism of your relationship with your mother and the background to that. And the, as you say, beautiful, the kind of emotional archaeology of that relationship and looking through the boxes and finding out more about her and reflecting on that. I was saying it's like a whimsical emotion, but it's definitely, it connects. I think for people who are of a certain age, whose parents are at a certain point, it really it's a very relatable book. And I'd say it was pretty hard going to write it all down, was it? It can't have been easy.
It was occasionally hard. The hard thing was looking through the photos. Yeah. Have you ever been in that position where you're confronted by quite a large archive of someone else's photos and memories that includes some of your own, maybe from your childhood? I find it very
hard to do that.
Yeah, it really is tough. Yeah, I mean, you're a little younger than I am, but we're both men in our 50s.
Yes.
And I think that sharp pain of nostalgia is starting to be felt now in a way that when I was in my 20s, I always liked looking back through things. And I've always been an archivist. So I've always been combing through the archives one way or another, looking at memorabilia and photos.
And you seem to have kept a lot of stuff as well.
I keep way too much.
Yeah, that's another conversation at home. But nostalgia was a word, I think, in the World War I and II, which meant it was a sick. Sorry, no, it was a word. It was a sickness.
That's right.
You know, people were really had to be almost given leave to deal with it.
Yeah. You get prescribed booze. To deal with nostalgia.
I self-medicate. But with everything else, you talked about being ahead of the curve with YouTube. I think you were ahead of the curve with podcasts in some ways. Would you not?
I'll take it.
Would you take that the radio shows you were doing, which became? I just felt like you seemed to know what was coming down the tracks. Is that fair to say? Or
more than fair. I've invented so many things that I haven't had credit
internet.
For.
Yeah.
Thought of the internet ages ago. Live streaming, I came up with that. Someone else copied it. No, we were always kind of lucky in that way, me and Joe, doing our DIY TV stuff just as broadcast television was beginning to accommodate other voices and consider the fact that cheap camcorders had made it possible for all sorts of people to make their own stuff. And the BBC had shows like Video Nation and Teenage Video Diaries and things like that. They were a bit more serious, and Channel 4 was the first broadcaster really to include silly stuff that people had made and encourage the idea that actually ordinary people, non-professional comedians, could do stuff that was, I mean, it was mainly rubbish.
You're just describing TikTok now.
Yeah. Essentially. Well, exactly.
Okay, so many. One of I was struck by. You talk about your wife a lot in the book, and
my wife. That's how I refer to her on the podcast.
I know.
It's robotic. It's supposed to be robotic, listeners. I'm not trying to do Borat.
No, indeed. And actually, what was the scene when you were on the plane at one stage and somebody was offering you something? You said, "My wife would not have."
Oh yeah, we were on the train.
The train, sorry.
And it was packed out, lots of delays, And my wife was sat across the aisle from me on a table of 4 with some women she'd met, and they were chatting away, getting to know each other. I was across on a single table doing some laptop work, and the lady with the drinks trolley came down, nice old Scottish lady, and my wife asked for... No, first of all, I asked for a tea, and she gave me just dairy milk. And I thought, damn it, I forgot to ask for oat milk, which I would normally prefer. And then my wife asked, she said, can I have tea? But do you have oat milk? Oh, yes. And so she got oat milk in her tea. I was like, damn it. And then I said to my wife, because I knew, like, my wife's not an oat milk fundamentalist. I sort of leaned across and said, hey, do you mind if I take the one with the oat milk? You can have this with the dairy milk. And so the serving lady didn't know that we were husband and wife. And so she thought I was just asking a random stranger if I could have their tea. And so she said, she might not want that one to me. And then so I thought, okay, well, I need to explain that she's my wife and that we have an existing relationship. But I thought, rather than just do that, which seemed a bit of a mouthful, I thought I'd do a joke. And I thought her new friends would appreciate it. And so I did a parody of a horrible, controlling man. And I went, she's my wife. She'll have what she's given. But everyone literally gasped.
Yeah, it didn't fall correctly.
It didn't land at all.
It didn't land.
Yeah, and everyone, my wife sort of cowered in her seat and sank into her seat with mortification, which made it look even more like I was a horrible, controlling nightmare husband.
Let me ask you about, I was listening to your chat with David Letterman recently.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. You went to New York to
do
the full interview. How'd you find him?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, full disclosure, my podcast producer, the guy who helps me a lot edit the show, is based in New York and works with David Letterman on his Netflix show.
Yeah.
And so I'd said for a while, I'd been kind of leaning on Seamus, my producer, like, so how's it looking with Dave? You ever talk to Dave about coming on the show? Do you think we could sort that out? That would be good. And poor old Seamus finally, he said, I think Dave's up for it, but you might have to come to New York. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I want to go to New York.
He seemed very affable, I must say.
He was
very
cool.
giving. Yeah.
Yeah, he was really sort of exactly the dream guest, and we had a good, relaxed conversation. I mean, I felt like I'd done quite a lot of prep, and it was one of those things where you know a lot about the guy, so you're not going to run out of things to talk about.
Yes.
It was more just a question of, is it okay to talk about certain things? In particular, the time when he was blackmailed by someone who wanted to reveal details of affairs that Letterman had had. This was about 15 years ago, maybe longer. And this is all public knowledge and everything. But I'd been struck by the fact that when this had happened to Letterman, he'd gone on his TV show, which he was still doing at that point, and he had explained the situation to the audience. He'd kind of outed his blackmailer. And the audience didn't really know what to make of it. You can still see that episode on YouTube. And it was such a strange moment, I thought. And I was really intrigued to know how he had arrived at that decision to sort of talk about this publicly, to get ahead of his blackmailer.
It's clever.
Yeah. And also, what repercussions did that have within his own life? What was that conversation like with his producer? Was it weird that the audience didn't seem to understand if he was doing a joke or not? All those kinds of things. So we talked about it, and I could see that he didn't love talking about it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, he didn't shut it down completely. And it was really amazing to meet him.
And you met McCartney, and you had him on the car. Paul McCartney, he's like, they have an injunction out on me because I'm kind of stalking him a little bit. But I'm a big fan. But he very, very nice interview. Another lovely. And you'd written the Crumpet song, actually.
Yes.
Hadn't you? I mean, you're a proper McCartney guy.
Yeah, I do love Macca. There's no question. He's not rubbish. And I feel like I was always on his side. I used to kind of find those Lennon hardliners a bit tedious. In the 90s, it was always, especially when Oasis were around.
Yes.
I think the agreement generally amongst hardcore fans was like, if you're cool, you like Lennon, and if you're a bit lame, you like McCartney.
Yeah.
And I feel as if that tide has definitely turned now.
Well, watch the Get Back documentary.
Get Back, exactly.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
So it was amazing to get to talk to him, and that was another one when I went in pretty well prepared. I just felt like the weight of his career and his achievements, and also the passion that his fans have. I didn't want to stumble in there and just be a total
mess
waster. Yeah.
Congratulations on your book, Adam.
Thanks, man.
I wish we had longer to talk about it. We might talk again in a different context, but I really enjoyed meeting you today, and thanks for coming in to talk to us.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
The book is called I Love You, Byeee. It's out in all good bookshops Thursday. It's just a day after tomorrow.
I can't believe it. It's only taken me 5 years.
Not bad going.
Thank you.